If you look on your screen now, you have 1, 2, and 3 labeled. Now, this is obviously related to 802.1x, but what I really want to focus here is the terminology. What is the terminology used for 1, 2, and 3 in this? We see that we have a laptop located here. We have an access point and a wireless LAN controller located here, and then we have a radius server off to the right. So go ahead and pause the video right now, and I want you to write down answers with a pen and paper if possible, or just say out loud the answers you may have, but really answer the question 1, 2, and 3. What are these labeled in our wireless environments? So go ahead and pause the video now, and I'll give you the answer. All right, hopefully you've written down your answer or you said your answer out loud. So when we're looking at this, what we really wanted you to come up with for terminology was this. I wanted you to come up with the terminology here for one as the supplicant. Well, let me spell it right. Okay, so that's the supplicant. I hope you got that one correct. So what about number 2? What do we see for number 2? What did you say for number 2? Well, hopefully you said authenticator. And then last but not least on our list, number 3. What did you say for number 3? Hopefully you said authentication server. Now, these 3 roles are very, very important. A lot of people call this the client over here, the supplicant or the client. And then we have the authenticator again as number 2. We move this over as number 1 and the authentication server. Remember, this is relating to 802.1x as our authentication method or protocol that we're using. So please know these different roles. Now let's dive a little deeper. Let's expand this exercise out into something a little more difficult. Now here you see 802.1x actual authentication process. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4 labeled here. And I would like you to go through with a pen and paper and tell me what 1, 2, 3, and 4 are actually called or what's actually taking place. Go ahead and pause your video here, write down with a pen and paper or say out loud the processes we're looking at here. What is happening at 1, 2, 3, and 4? These steps, what's taking place? All right, hopefully you've had time to write those down and we can go ahead and give you the answer to these steps. First of all, number 1, what is going on in step number 1? Let me move this over a little bit. Well, in step number 1, the authenticator is going to what? It's going to ignore all requests, isn't it? The authenticator ignores all requests. Now, is that specifically true? I want you guys to tell me. Are we ignoring all requests? We're absolutely ignoring all requests. Is that correct? No, it really isn't. We're ignoring all other requests. What we're really looking for is an 802.1x packet that's meant for the radius server. That's the only thing that can pass through the authenticator and actually give you a network logon. So what we're saying is the authenticator ignores all requests except for the network logon until that process has completed. Now, once that process is completed, we can move on to the next step where the radius server actually receives that packet, doesn't it? And it authenticates the client. You gotta excuse my typing here. Now, if the radius server authenticates the client also authenticates the server. Okay, so the radius server authenticates the client and the client authenticates the radius server. So a two-way street here. We're not talking about one-way authentication. We have to be sure this is this is the client we're looking for, and the client also has to be aware of who the radius server is. All right, so step 1 and 2 we've done fairly clearly. Now what about step 3? where we have access success. What's happening at that point? Well, now we have the case where the radius server is going to what? The radius server is going to pass the session key to the authenticator. We're going to pass the key along. We're going to say, hey, this was done well. We're all set. We're ready to go. Go ahead and here's the key for this session. So this key is actually going to be given all the way up here. You see this line, how the line just kind of stops right here at this layer? That's the authenticator. So we're going to give the key to the authenticator in step 3. So what about step 4 of this process? What happens in step 4 of the process? Well, after the step 4, we have the client and the AP start using the encryption. And remember, this encryption is very important. It's what keeps our data safe from this point to this point. From here to here, remember that's sent over open air. We need some type of encryption to take place. So what's happened is we've had an associate, we've had a logon. The radius server confirmed the logon. The keys were exchanged. Then the key over here was exchanged. And then the client and AP can start using the encryption because both sides have the key.